everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah, and today we are talking about a book that I absolutely loved. And to be honest, I've been putting off filming a review for it because, well, first of all, I recorded this video a couple of weeks ago and my sound didn't work until halfway through, so that just had to scrap that. But I loved this book so much, and I so wanted to do it justice, and I haven't felt like I've been able to do that yet. So here we go. I'm going to do my best to tell you how wonderful this book is, and the book is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. You have most likely seen this book on Bookstagram, Book Talk. It's super popular right now, and for good reason. It is just wonderful. It's part of a duology. Book 2, Ruthless Vows, is out already. I got this book, I want to say last spring in Owlcrate, and I kicked myself for not reading it right away because it was so good. so good. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the plot of the story. I'm going to do a quick spoiler-free summary, and then I'll get into the rest of the book. And I will just say that there are going to be some spoilers, not only for Divine Rivals, but also for Ruthless Vows, just in the nature of talking about the lore of the book. I think that some things for the plot of book 2 might kind of slip in a little bit. So just be aware if you are wanting to read both books that you might get a little bit of a feel for both of them. This story is about Iris Winnow. She's a reporter for the Oath Gazette. Her brother is fighting in a war. She has a magical typewriter that she thinks she's talking to somebody, and it is actually her rival, Roman Kitt, who also works at the same newspaper that she does, and they are both fighting for this columnist position within the paper. Events unfold, and they are kind of stuck in a very difficult position together. So that's as much as I want to say spoiler free. I don't want to give a ton away. So let's go ahead and get into some spoilers and the plot and my thoughts on the book. Just to set the stage, let me give a little bit of a background of kind of the world that we are exploring in this book. And a lot of the lore is kind of given in bits and pieces throughout the book. So there is some initial world building, but you get a lot more information about what is actually going on as the story progresses. I really liked that because world building is so necessary, and authors who create really intricate, exciting places, I think, do a really great job of writing and really keep my attention. But it can also be kind of boring to read 4 chapters of just establishing what the heck happened before these characters even come into play. So I did appreciate that we get those bits and pieces throughout the story and the way that we get them. It's not just the author telling us, it is through other characters giving pieces of information. So this story starts in the town of Oath, and there's a war going on. So this war is between kind of the 2 remaining gods and goddesses of old times. So we have Enva Skyward, who is kind of like a goddess of music of sorts, and then we have Dacre Underling, who is a god of the underworld, essentially. They do have a history. They were asleep for a really long period of time. Something has woken them up, and they are now at odds with each other. So Enva has been recruiting people through the use of her music to fight for her. And that is kind of, I think, enough to kind of get us started with the story. So the main character of this story, one of the main characters, is Iris Winnow. She is a reporter, lives with her mom and her older brother. At the very start of the book, her older brother is going to fight for Enva, so he is leaving. There's this really sweet emotional chapter where he's leaving and they have this final conversation as he's getting on the train. He leaves his trench coat with her and a really nice note, and they part ways. So Iris now lives with her mother, who is an alcoholic, struggles to hold down a job, and they are really having a hard time keeping the apartment with Iris's little money that she makes as a reporter. At this stage, she's kind of just doing obituaries and long lists of things in the paper. There is a columnist position open within the Oath Gazette where she works. And that position was initially supposed to go to Roman Kitt. He is also a reporter, kind of in the same boat as Iris at this time. He's just kind of doing a lot of typing right now until he can prove himself. His family is well known in the town. They're kind of a big name, lots of money. So the position, he's kind of a shoo-in for it until Iris shows up and they notice that she actually has potential as a writer. And now it's a bit of a competition between the two of them. So Iris very much sees Roman as a rival. And at the beginning of the story, we get most of it from Iris's point of view. Dealing with kind of the aftermath of her brother leaving, her mother continuing to be an alcoholic, selling valuable pieces of their home to be able to afford food and alcohol and cigarettes. The last thing that Iris's mother sells is this radio that belonged to her grandmother. In a moment of nostalgia and missing her brother and kind of mourning the life that they had before this war started, Iris pulls out her grandmother's typewriter and writes a note to her brother, just kind of throws it in the wardrobe, and it disappears. So she, is hopeful that somehow, through some magic, it happened to find her brother. There is magic throughout the city. There are ley lines that some of the buildings are built on, so there are some places where there's like some residual magic, I think is how I would describe it. Like there's a cafe where your tea never gets cold and things like that. So just little spurts of magic here and there throughout the city. She continues to do this for a really long time, and then eventually she gets a response that says, "I'm not Forrest, I'm not your brother." So she's been writing these notes, kind of explaining what's going on in her life to a stranger. Unbeknownst to Iris, the stranger that she's writing to is actually Roman Carver Kitt, and I say his name like that for a reason that we'll get to. But he has been reading these long letters from Iris, kind of thinking like, should I be doing this? Should I tell her? Should I give them back? Like, what's the right way to handle this situation? But at the end, he kind of just really enjoyed getting this glimpse into her. She's kind of prickly on the outside, right? All business. I have to do this because if I don't, I'm going to get evicted, or I'm not going to be able to feed my family. Like, she's just very, she's a lot on her plate. So he gets this glimpse into her as a person and the things that she's dealing with and struggling with, and her thoughts and feelings about, kind of being abandoned by her brother and having to pick up the pieces. And he really starts to grow attached to Iris, and at this point is now kind of afraid to say that it's him because he doesn't know how she's going to take that piece of information. They continue their rivalry for a while, and Iris comes home one night. Her mother is not there. So she goes to bed, wakes up the next morning, her mother's still not there. When she gets to work, she has to type up an ad for a woman that was found on the tracks in a purple coat, and Iris realizes that it's most likely her mother, goes to the station to identify it and finds out that that's true, which was absolutely heartbreaking. It's been a long time since I've read a book where I had to continue reading, and so I got to this part in the book, and my husband said, like, either we were supposed to go do something. He's like, "Hey, we gotta go," and I said, "I can't." Like, I literally could not leave right now. I have to finish this chapter. I have to start the next one. I have to find out what happens. So absolutely heartbreaking scene in the book. So well written. At this point, Iris realizes that there is absolutely nothing left for her here in Oath. She's much better off going to the front where all the fighting is to try to find her brother, since he's the only family that they have left. So that is her plan. She resigns from the Oath Gazette, and she ends up working for another paper called the Ink-Ridden Tribune, who is sending reporters to the front line to print an unbiased view of what is going on. And so that is the role she has taken on now. As she is on her way there, and as she kind of starts into this role, she continues to write to this mystery person who has now started to sign their name as C, and she is updating them on everything that is going on, that she's going to be gone for a while. She'll write as soon as she can, and of course, we know as the reader that this is Roman Kitt, and so he realizes what's going on, and he just leaves to go after her. He quits his job, he leaves his family, takes his typewriter, also goes to work for the Ink Written Tribune, and just goes after Iris. So Iris and her new friend Addie that she's working with at the front to, find out what's actually going on, end up staying at a bed and breakfast with a woman named Marisol. So there's a lot of fighting in this book. Marisol's bed and breakfast is kind of a small like slice of tranquility in the midst of everything that is going on. And so it is really refreshing as Iris and Addie take turns going to the front and like sitting in the trenches and seeing what's going on. Then they come back to this, homemade meal, a really like a well-tended garden. So it's nice, the contrast between those two situations as the story progresses. So one day, Iris is working at her typewriter, and they've been given warnings that if you hear this siren, you need to shut off all the lights. If you hear this siren, you need to lay down and just freeze, because these are the different types of attacks from the other side, from Dacre. So he has these like winged beasts, he has these dogs, and you have to react to them in different ways. So the siren goes off, indicating that everyone needs to either, if you're inside, like stop what you're doing. If you're outside, just lay down and don't move, because they're attracted to movement. And as she is preparing her room, she looks out into the field, and there is Roman Kitt just walking through the field. So this is another part where my heart was racing. She sprints after him and just tackles him to the ground and tells him not to move, and they're fine, but whew, I was so worried. And she kind of says, "What are you doing here?" And he plays it off as like I'm not gonna let you, outdo me with your writing. And they start to work together. At this part in the story, Iris is still typing letters to C, and also spending a lot more time with Roman Kitt, and so she's becoming really conflicted because she has developed feelings for this mystery person, but like Roman Kitt's also here, and she likes him a lot more than she initially thought. So she's kind of she's conflicted about her feelings for these two different people, seemingly. Iris and Roman both go to the front at the same time to observe what is going on in the trenches, and while they're there, there is an attack. A grenade is thrown in and explodes, and they're separated. It does injure Roman's leg. He's okay, but his leg is injured, and as he's kind of saying like, "Hey, I don't know if I'm gonna make it, you should run, I need you to look in my satchel," and Iris just fights him the whole way and says, "No, it's like, you're gonna be okay, we're gonna get out of this." He ends up in the hospital for a while, and as she is taking his stuff back to the bed and breakfast, she accidentally drops his satchel and realizes that all of the letters she has ever written to C are in his satchel, and goes to confront him, and he admits to it, and of course at this point just says, it's because he has feelings for her, and I think they end up kissing. It was really sweet, and she needs time to kind of process everything that has happened, but in the end realizes that she's mad, she's upset, she wished he would have handled it a different way, but maybe not. And so they do end up getting married in the garden of the bed and breakfast, and it's super cute and super sweet. And again, just that little bit of tranquility in the midst of everything that is going on. The ending of the book, it does end on a cliffhanger, unfortunately, but the good news is if you're reading book 1, book 2 is already out, so you don't have to wait in a tortured state for too long. So the town that they're in is going to be attacked. So they have two options. They can leave or they can stay and help people evacuate. And of course, they decide to stay and help people evacuate. Keep in mind that Roman is injured. His leg is not working as well as it did before because he was hit by shrapnel from the grenade. So as they are trying to help people evacuate, this like mustard gas type thing is released, and Iris and Roman try to run. They kind of said, like, no matter what happens, like, don't let go of my hand, and they get pulled apart at this time. So she's trying to find him. Somebody in a gas mask grabs her, and she thinks, oh, it's Kitt, like, everything's fine. And then she realizes it's not him. It's actually her brother Forrest, who has now shown up and is trying to get her away. And, she says, I have to go back for Roman. I have to go find him. and her brother fights her on it and says like, no, we don't have a lot of time. We have to get away now. And the last thing she sees as they're like running is Roman kind of crawling through this cloud of mustard gas or whatever. And I think there's like blood running out of his mouth and trying to get out of there as fast as he can. And then it's just kind of envelops him. And that's the last that she sees. So the book ends with Iris and Forrest back in Oath. And, you know, she kind of says, like, I have to go find him. And he says, you know, he's been taken by Dacre now, and there's really nothing that you can do. And so there is a little bit of a snippet of the next book at the end, but I'll save that for when you actually read it, because I don't want to ruin too much, but definitely worth the read. It was such a good mix of like fantasy, romance, and a little bit of historical fiction. Though it's not based on actual history, it had that feel to it. Such a quick, easy read. I mean, it's not a super long book. I think it was like 300-ish pages. Rebecca Ross does a really great job, I think, of kind of mixing that heartbreak with those like moments of this is why I read. So I definitely recommend, if you've read it, please let me know your thoughts. I don't have enough people to talk about this book with, so I'm always looking for more. But that is the end of this video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.